welcome back to a new year, leading your church. This year, we're going to be focused and talking a lot about how to lead change in your church. And to begin and kick off the new year with the podcast, we're going to, over the next 4 episodes, I'm going to bring you a mini series I did, kind of a leadership series on, I've titled it Breaking Up with Insanity. How do we kind of break out of that rut of doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results? And so on the podcast, we're going to break into the introduction, and then we'll move into the different pieces of that. And I just want to invite you in your life, in your leadership, in your church, would you consider what is it going to take for you to make the shifts, to make the adjustments, to make the tweaks so that you can lead change in your church? Now let's join the teaching. One of the things I love doing is talking about leading change. As a pastor, as a church leader, someone who's studied leadership, who's practiced it. I've led through tragedy, I've led through crisis, I've led through transitions and growth. And along the way, I've spent a lot of time in the process of leading change, and it's a constant journey. It's a constant battle. You learn new things every single day. And so in this mini-series titled Breaking Up with Insanity, one of the things I want you to walk away with is if you are going to lead change, things have to change. If you are going to lead change, you as a leader are going to have to change. If you're going to lead change, then you're going to have to lead other people. You're going to have to lead other staff members. You're going to have to lead lay leaders. You're going to have to lead volunteers to change the way we think, to change the way we act, to change the way we talk. You know that old definition, it's been attributed to Albert Einstein, but it's been proven that has been made that he didn't actually say it, but the old quote about insanity, doing the same things over and over and over, expecting a different result. And how true is that in so many of our churches? So many times we desire different results. We want to reach people who are far from God. We want to begin discipling people who are in our churches. We want to make a mark spiritually on our communities. Personally, we want to grow. We want to renew our heart. We want to be able to lead change, but unfortunately, many leaders, many pastors fall into this definition of insanity. We look and we say, we want things to change. I want to change. Yet we do the same things over and over and over. I want to encourage us as we pursue leading change. Consider this verse in 1 Chronicles chapter 12. It says this, as they're listing off different tribes and what they were given in David's army. It says this, from the Issacharites, who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. To understand the times and know what to do. That's what I hope as pastors we learn to do. That's what as pastors I hope we discern, that we can understand the times. And let's be honest, the times are drastically changing. The times are drastically shifting. Things are moving further and further and further away from God. And as pastors, we need to understand the times and know what to do. So when we're thinking about leading change, we need to be able to discern the times, to discern what's going on in our community, to be able to discern what's going on in our church. And more importantly, we need to be able to discern what's going on in our own hearts, in our own lives, our own habits, and know what to do. Some things we're going to talk about it over this mini series. We're going to talk about why timing matters for leaders and for churches. We're going to talk about how when we dream, it opens up and it stimulates future growth. We're going to talk about how narrowing the focus actually frees you up to accomplish more. We're going to talk about setting good goals and emphasizing the right activities. We're going to talk about how do we get off to a good start. Whether you're starting off a brand new year in January or you're kicking off a ministry year in August and September, how do we get off to a good start? I want to start by asking, why do you need to change some of your thinking and some of your actions? Why is it that you need to change your thinking? Let me be honest with you. As a pastor, I constantly have to challenge my assumptions. I have to constantly question what's going on in the life of our church. I have to constantly question what's going on in the life of our community. And when I say constantly, I'm not talking about like every moment, every morning, afternoon, and evening. I'm not talking about that, but from month to month, especially from quarter to quarter, and then from season to season, we have to question. According to a leadership checkup that I was a part of a few years ago, this is some things that were noted from it. Over 50% of leaders identified as less effective when describing their Sunday school or their groups. Over 50% of the pastors, church leaders said their groups, their Sunday school, their groups were less effective. 60% said their church was less effective with a clear path for engaging new volunteer leadership, for identifying new leaders, equipping them, and deploying them. About 50% said their church was less effective in inviting people to Sunday school or worship. And then when they described obstacles in their church, listen to what they said. 56 out of 105 said the goals in the church aren't measured. 54 out of 105 said they are not engaging their community. And 47 out of 105 said the organizational structure within their church was an obstacle in and of itself. Now, we shouldn't be surprised by this information because we know that well over 60 to 70%, some say even closer to 80 or 90% of churches across America are plateaued and declining. Now think about that for a second. That probably means many of us are working to lead our churches to change. We're leading our churches, we're desiring to lead our churches to overcome plateau and decline. So as we think about this new year, whether it's January or August or September with a new ministry year, I want you to recognize that leading change is possible. But I want you to know, if we're going to lead change, what has to happen first is that you and I as leaders have to grow in the areas of leading change. We have to grow in our leadership. We also have to grow spiritually, because leading change is going to take a toll on you. It's going to take a toll on you physically. It's going to take a toll on you emotionally. And make no mistake, leading change will take a toll on you spiritually. And so we have to grow as a leader. So with those things in mind, rarely do we accidentally lead change. Rarely do we just wake up and go, oh wow, we've led this change and I don't know exactly how it happened, but it happened. Isn't that great? And so I want to help you in this first quarter, as you begin to pursue this new year, as you begin to pursue this first quarter of this ministry year, I want to help you lead a new path. I want to help you break up with that insanity of doing the same things over and over and over and over again and expecting something different. I read on Carey Nieuwhof's blog an article. It was an article about Kodak. Now, you know the company. Well, if you're a young leader, you probably don't know the company, but Kodak basically owned the photography market. And not only that, did you know Kodak actually invented digital photography? Now, you would expect that this iconic brand that's synonymous with photography, the one that invented the digital camera, that they would be thriving. But that's not true. Instead, they went bankrupt in 2012. In 2012, Kodak went bankrupt. There's more than a little bit of irony with this. And in fact, in 2000, Kodak also launched an early photo lab upload website where you could take your digital pictures and you could upload them to the website. It was called oPhoto. But the Harvard Business Review says that instead of making it a place to share the pictures, what they did was they made it a place to print their pictures. And so they were on the right track. They were moving in the right direction. But they couldn't change their thinking. They couldn't break their patterns of behavior. And because they created the digital photography and they created the place where you could upload your pictures, but they wanted you to print the pictures instead of share the pictures like Instagram, Facebook, and others. And they ended up going bankrupt. They had the right knowledge, but they missed the application. And I think, unfortunately, that's what happens for many of us as pastors. We can have the right knowledge, but we have the wrong application when it comes to leading change. You see, if we're going to break up with insanity, if we're going to lead differently this year, this ministry year, we're going to have to reconsider some of the things that we're doing. If we're going to lead change, we have to recognize that for change to occur, that we're going to have to change. And some of the things in our church are going to have to change. Some of the things that you love as a pastor might have to change. You see, a few years ago, we were driving in the car, and I'm always talking about change, lead change. And my wife looked at me and said, you only like to change when it's your idea. I thought about that for a moment. And I replied with the wisest thing I could come up with in the moment. And I said, You see, that's true, isn't it? Most of the time, when it comes to leading change, we only want to lead the change for the things that are our idea. The truth is, when it comes to leading change, it doesn't matter if it's your idea or somebody else's idea. Sometimes we have to let go, pastors, of the things that even we love. And so I want to encourage you, as we navigate this mini-series, I want you to recognize that if we're going to lead change, if we're going to break up with insanity, that we need to prepare our hearts. So I'm going to ask, will you pray with me? Will you just take a moment and say, God, will you give me insight into the things in my life that needs to change and my leadership that needs to change? God, will you give me insight as we navigate through this mini-series on the things in our community, the things in our church, the things around us? Will you give me wisdom and insight so that I can understand the times and know what to do? Thanks for joining us today on the podcast. I want to encourage you, if this content was helpful, I want to encourage you to share it, pass it along with other pastors, with other church leaders, lay leaders in your church. That would be helpful. Also, leave a comment. You can subscribe and follow us there on YouTube. You can find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and just want to encourage you this year, go along for the journey as we lead change in our church. I'll see you next time.